So, you're a millionaire, billionaire, or perhaps you're in a gigantic corporation. Once this happens, tax becomes the biggest expense, the one thing constantly stunting these highly successful, powerful people. This is where offshore companies come into play. Offshore means a company also operates in a different country and jurisdiction compared to where it trades. These offshore countries are used as tax havens. The wealthy will exploit countries that lack economic competence because they rely on the wealthy to store assets, so they have more capital to eventually become more economically competent. These countries, such as Panama, have the following attributes: low or zero taxation, secrecy in financial dealings, and moderate financial regulation and supervision. Tax avoidance is legal, tax evasion is illegal. The difference is ill-defined under the Finance Act 2013, Section 207, as it is defined to whatever the courts wish it to be. This gives them a gigantic scope. An example of avoiding tax would be setting up a service company under the company name for customer support in an offshore jurisdiction. This will reduce the company's wage bill, office costs and taxation, while providing those who are affected by the economic status of their country with jobs. While tax evasion is outright setting up an arrangement with the sole purpose to evade taxation, yet the intent to my example could be given for that purpose, or it could be used as a cloak for tax evasion. A clever way the wealthy evade tax from the HMRC, the UK's taxman, is by setting up offshore shell companies, which is legal, when they serve as technical vehicles facilitating complicated business transactions, but they are often used for illegal purposes. Think of a normal business being a snail. They have a shell. The shell will be all the formalities such as documents that state a name, directors and shares that make up a business on paper so it's legally valid. Then the slug itself being what the business does, for example a car dealership. However, on the other hand, a shell company is sneakier. Think of a shell company of literally just only being the shell from the snail, that is pretend to be an actual snail. This illusion tricks the law to think an actual company is there when it's not. Since all the formalities are completed, it is completely legal and valid. However, it is an entity that is only a skeleton. There is nothing that it does as a business other than to hold assets and facilitate transactions. Secrecy is a crucial fundamental to how these businesses get away with evading tax. The government have laid out the disclosure of tax avoidance scheme rules, DOTAS or DOTAS, that require the promoter, in other words the owner of the shell company, to tell them the arrangement. However, the shell company financial transactions are unknown, making this pointless. HMRC cannot prove stating X owns Y shell company, they have transacted A amount of money, therefore must pay Z in tax. Imagine having this power. Let's say you earn a salary of 1.2 million a year and it all goes into your UK bank account. HMRC can see all the transactions on your account and will tax you heavily. But instead of receiving your money for a UK bank transaction, you decide to transfer your money to a shell company you own. It will be all a secret. You will have 1.2 million and HMRC don't know, since the transaction of capital is unknown to the government and the money can never be found by anyone but the owner. This would be illegal and defined under Section 4 of the DOTAS, but punishment will never be served in our scenario as it's near untraceable. Offshore companies facilitate bundles of criminal activity. I will outline two: money laundering and bribes. Keep note that the creation of offshore companies is completely legal, meaning that the law firms and those who create the companies are not doing anything illegal, such as Mossack Fonseca, whose inner workings were exposed in April 2016 by the Panama Papers, which was released by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, ICIJ for short. It will be those doing the act of the criminal activity within the shell company that are liable. The ICIJ in the Pandora Papers leak in 2021 exposed one of the most notable criminals to be involved in offshore dealings, who is the mobster boss Rafael Amato, who has been tied to at least a dozen killings. The document provides details about a shell company registered in the United Kingdom that Amato used to buy land in Spain. Money laundering is where money obtained through criminal activity is turned into legal cash. It involves three processes: placement, layering and profiting. Placement is accomplished through a process called structuring and smurfing. These terms mean breaking up the large deposits of money into smaller chunks so it does not come up on the radar of authorities. Equally, this can be done by purchasing a bank or buying higher cash flow businesses such as casinos. Doing this will avoid identification, obligations to report, and to present documentation that is required. The second step is called layering. This is where the criminals distance themselves from the money. Money can be transferred and split frequently between bank accounts, countries, persons, or businesses to achieve this. Offshore companies make this process simple and more efficient. No authority can check the accounts, meaning it is risk-free. Now finally, the criminal profits. They can take out the cash for whatever he wants. Bribes are easily hidden by offshore companies. An ordinary bribe is giving money to someone. However, this can be risky. If it is normal bank transfer, it will be seen. If it is cash, it is physically there. However, with a shell company, it is just a gift of a business. No one knows the value of the business. It can be worth no money or it could be worth 50 million. Authorities cannot see the amount. It is completely unknown, so they cannot prove that a bribery took place. I believe a new law needs to be put in place. Making shell company transactions traceable is needed. This can be done by creating an institution that go undercover to every business to check their business activity to expose illegal shell companies. However, the difficulty is how they will identify who is a shell company and not. It is an enormous task that requires a lot of money and manpower. Also, politics may be an issue. Countries will have to be told of the investigation from an international relations perspective, but I could only imagine the poorer countries not liking the shutdown of illegal shell companies, as they create wealth they are desperate for, so they will reject the investigation. Another concern is that many political powers are involved with shell companies. The Pandora Papers also uncovered financial secrets of 35 current and former world leaders, more than 330 politicians and public officials in 91 countries and territories, meaning government leaders would not want such an institution, making it very hard for it to become a reality.